Here we are getting into semi-final match number 2 in the Mindmaster 2020 tournament hosted by Riot Japan. My name is Boulevard, going to be bringing you the English action here today. No, excuse me, had to burp real quick. So, this is a 2-deck, no-ban, region-locked format, as is sort of typical for invitationals like this one. And we are going to have Luichi on the top, getting us started off with Discard Aggro, has Bannerman Scouts available as the second deck, that is Misfortune Quinn. And then Economica running back the same lineup that we saw out of Aklon in our previous semi-final match, with the Twisted Fate Ezreal, as well as Frostbite midrange. And both players kind of getting their ideal turn 1, Luichi with the Precious Pet, but Economica, you cannot beat a turn 1 Jagged Butcher that is powered up by the Warning Shot, and that does represent 4 damage if Economica wants to go for the open attack here. Second Precious Pet picked up by Luichi, but Economica going to have the capabilities to start to try and take over this game with the Ezreal. That's why... Maybe that's one of the reasons that we're not seeing aggro. With all of the nerfs that Burn and Noxus aggro cards in general have sort of received, you know, the Ezreal is a lot more impactful in dealing with these early boards, and we are seeing a lot more Ezreals in general. Now, there are Get Exciteds in Luichi's deck to try and deal with this Ezreal. We do see... you know, those in Luichi's deck. It's not really typical for the Ezreal decks to be running Get Exciteds these days. We typically see no 3 damage removal spells in Ezreal decks, and if we do, we're going to see Gotcha before we see Get Excited, and we're not really seeing Get Excited outside of the Karma variants, where you do have that additional burn backup plan of the Karma available for you. You know, once that Karma's online, the Get Exciteds represent 6 damage, which is a little bit more than a quarter of your life total, so it's understandable for that to be running it, but outside of that, not really. This isn't really a burn deck. It's more of like a board control style nab deck. And I think we're going to see... Okay, so we're going to go for the Jury Rig. This is, you know, not wanting to discard both of those to the Rummage. I guess we are going for potentially an aggressive Jinx level up on the following turn. If Luichi is so inclined, they can play the Jinx, play a Jury Rig, and then rummage away both this Augmented Experimenter and whatever comes off the top of their deck, rather. Economica, though, with 2 Thermogenic Beams, does have some pretty big blowout potential for something like that. You know, Luichi will be left with 2 cards in hand, but unless he can find a refuel through either another copy of Jinx or another copy of Augmented Experimenter, will fall down pretty quickly here in game number 1. And that's sort of the problem that I've always had with Discard Aggro, is sort of the lack of refuel that you have once you get it down. If it dies, the fact that your refuel is vulnerable, I guess is the way to say it. If Jinx dies, it feels like it's a lot harder to win the game. We're actually going to see Jury Rig number 2, and if I am reading the situation correctly, it looks like Luichi played the Jury Rig, and then rather than going for an open attack, actually decided to pass priority over to Economica, who then developed the Petty Officer, and then go for the attack? That seems a little bit strange to me. It's possible that I missed it and the Precious Pet was developed this turn, but I don't think that's the case. So, a little bit weird out of Luichi. You know, with Jury Rig being a burst spell, you could have just played it and attacked. I think it's a little bit weird that we passed priority over and gave Economica a chance to develop, as the Petty Officer is going to be a pretty impactful blocker here on the turn, getting rid of both Jury Rigs, surviving with 1 HP. Luichi closes the gap a little bit on the life totals, but not enough, and it looks like he's going to commit to this Jinx Rummage play on the following turn. Economica could get... not necessarily baited, but like play the Ezreal first, and that does mean that Thermogenic Beam's off the table. Now, does Luichi want to play the Get Excited here to take out the Ezreal and sort of keep control of the board as in any way that he can? You know, if this Get Excited does come down, Ezreal's going to die. Precious Pet gets to block something. It's possible we see a Thermo Beam down onto the Precious Pet after the fact, but we are actually going to go for the Jinx. This is pretty likely to die next turn, but it won't die this turn, and it does mean that Luichi's going to have 4 cards to play with, which is about as much of a refuel as you could ask for. How impactful are the cards coming out, though? A couple of dudders in this deck left for Luichi. You know, Astute Academic. A lot of 1-drops. Astute Academic, Precious Pet, Zonite Urchin, Flame Chomper's House Spider. Actually, no Sump Dredgers coming out of Luichi, and in fact, the unit lineup is overwhelmingly weak. It's really the spells where a deck like this is going to shine. We do see a couple copies of Vision, so really just trying to go wide with weak units and get a couple of Visions off. Triple Augmented Experimenter, yeah. House Spider, the strongest thing in this deck. We're not seeing anything like Crimson Disciple, Imperial Demolitionist. I actually almost forgot the names of those cards, given how long it's been since we've seen them. Ooh, and it looks like Luichi's going to have a difficult time emptying their hand next turn with this Noxian Fervor and Vision. Mystic Shot going to soften up this Jinx for the Ezreal's Mystic Shot, or even just the Thermo Beam next turn. Either way, happy to take the target. And 2 Augmented Experimenters off the top for Luichi does mean that this is the most expensive conceivable hand that he could possibly have in a deck like this, and also severely limits his refuel options for the future. This is the first Jinx, obviously, but 1 Augmented Experimenter was discarded to the Rummage to get this Jinx online, and now the 3rd Augmented Experimenter will be discarded to the 2nd Augmented Experimenter, and the cards that Luichi has before the discard happens aren't very impactful. You know, we're probably going to see the Noxian Fervor here. The question is, do you throw it at the Ezreal, or do you try to throw it at your opponent's face? I don't think the burn is really what you're looking for here. You could Augmented Experimenter the Ezreal, so there is a consideration to go ahead and push damage at face where you can, kill the Ezreal next turn. You already know that that's what you're going to be doing. Or do you try and control the board a little bit? Because if you do kill the Ezreal here, then you get to Augmented Experimenter the Petty Officer, and that potentially represents 4 damage since the discard will be the Vision, and it looks like we will be killing the Ezreal. Economica could develop a Twisted Fate here. Blue card not looking like the worst play in the world, although could be saving this for, you know, a gold card or red card. I think red card's probably the most likely. Anything like a Jinx or Draven is, I think, going to be a pretty snap Thermo Beam out of Economica. You're not too worried about softening something up with the gold card to finish it off a little bit later. So I think blue card with the Twisted Fate here makes a fair amount of sense. Let's see what we draw. What do we got? A Jagged Butcher. You know, a respectable top deck. Would have loved to see something like a Yordle Grifter get a little bit of advantage immediately, continue to develop the board, get us that warning shot for the Riptide Rex a little bit later on, but that's not going to be the case. Economica probably going to start off the turn with an open attack. Luichi going to respond with the Augmented Experimenter, and that's about where my caster vision stops. After that, we kind of really got to look at what Luichi gets off of this Augmented Experimenter. Oh, Flame Chompers is actually probably one of the better pickups you could have. I'm not sure how Augmented Experimenter discards. I'm pretty sure it's going to be left to right, which unfortunately, if that is the case, Vision will not actually give any attack to the Flame Chompers, which is very, very bad for Luichi in this situation. It does mean that the Flame Chompers will not be able to take out the Petty Officer. Here we're going to see Experimenter down on the Twisted Fate. Now we're going to run an experiment of our own. Yeah, Vision does come out before the Flame Chompers, discarding left to right. And what do we have? Get Excited, Noxian Fervor, Flame Chompers. The Get Excited's, the massive burn coming out of Luichi here really doesn't represent much in the face of the massive life total that Economica still has. 18 life is an astronomical amount, and picks up a Mystic Shot that can play as an activator for the Riptide Rex on turn 8. Yeah, go ahead and fire off that Thermo Beam. That's about as good as they get. Gonna throw out this Noxian Fervor in response. Where's it gonna go? Jagged Butcher, Zap Spray Fin, or Economica's face? Very, very limited on refuel is Luichi. All Augmented Experimenters are gone way before their time. You have a discard spell in your hand, but we're still gonna fight for the board. Jagged Butcher is going to die here. Thermo Beam gonna fizzle. That does keep us a little bit farther away from the Ezreal level, though I don't even know that that is necessarily the win condition we're playing for. And yeah, why not add insult to injury? Give me another Riptide Rex. And the Flame Chomper is just going to sacrifice itself to the Petty Officer. You know, why not? Throw it under the bus. It doesn't matter, baby. This doesn't do anything. What are we doing, Luichi? What are we doing here, man? You sitting here, you're tugging at my heartstrings, tugging at my Petty Officer. Just going to pass the turn over. And I think this is just going to be lethal. you probably have to throw a Get Excited onto this Zap Sprayfin just to try and prevent Riptide Rex from closing out game number 1. And that doesn't feel good. You don't like that. Even though you're card neutral, it's still not good. And of course, we know that Economica still has the Mystic Shot available, and that will actually just be lethal unless Luichi plays the Draven here. Mystic Shot now being hovered. Probably going to be thrown at Economica's face, thinking about doing it in combat so that Luichi is limited in the amount of development that they can get out on the board. If Luichi plays a unit and then Economica responds with the Mystic Shot, then Luichi has a chance to play a second unit, and Economica's going for face damage here. Here we are going to see the Draven. That should prevent, as long as these line up how they should. Okay, yeah, a fair spread does mean that Luichi rather is going to live at 1 HP. With a Spinning Axe and a Get Excited, though, I don't think there's anything that Luichi could possibly try and top deck to get them out of this situation, even if it's a Jinx. And Jinx is far and away the best top deck you have available to you since we are out of Augmented Experimenters. You just get Thermo Beamed. Vision is probably the worst top deck you could possibly have in this situation, and Luichi gets that one instead of the Jinx. So that is going to be game number 1, going over to Economica, following in the footsteps of Aklon, picking up that game win with the Twisted Fate Ezreal, which does mean we're going to be moving over to a Frostbite mid-range deck. Pool Shark going to come out for Economica, going to get that free draw as well as keep his board wide. Ooh, the Yordle Grifter finally comes out, and that does mean we could just see Warning Shot lethal out of Economica. Does look like that is going to be the case. Insult to injury. Give me that Zonite Urchin. This Warning Shot's going to be your downfall here. We're going to see the Vision discarded to the Get Excited, pointed at Luichi's own face. Game number 1, going over to Economica. So we are going to get Frostbite mid-range into the discard aggro. Discard aggro not really doing what it needed to do in the last game. We'll see if it can get a little bit better here in game number 2 of this series between Economica and Luichi. Looking like a pretty decent opening hand. You know, you're still getting your 1-drops out, Precious Pet as well as the Zonite Urchin. We're looking at a full mulligan out of Economica, looking for Omen Hawks and Avaros and Sentries, and picks up 2 Omen Hawks. Not bad. Not bad at all. But 2 Precious Pet on the side of Luichi will actually make those Omen Hawks irrelevant, at least in their own right. And Economics is actually just going to pass without playing the Omen Hawk. Wants to see what Luichi develops first. Thinking about just going for double Hawk next turn rather than spreading them out. But it looks like we are going to actually get the Omen Hawk down now that the Precious Pet is the development out of Luichi. Might as well get the attack in. Block not going to come out, but that does get us 1 out of 5 on that Sejuani. Granted, I've never seen a Sejuani level in the Frostbite mid-range deck, so I really am hard-pressed to imagine that that is something that is relevant in a matchup like this. But now, unless this Omen Hawk comes down, Luichi's got a pretty big turn, actually, with the Zonite Urchin into the Flame Chompers. Could push through 6 damage. At least one of these Omen Hawks will now be able to block the Zonite Urchin. We could even see Jury Rig instead. This is why I'm not a big fan of the discard aggro deck, though. Looking at Luichi's hand, it's pretty weak. He needs to find something, and there are quite a few somethings in the deck in order to get this hand going, find a little bit of refuel, as you've sort of found all of your discard outlets, or not your discard outlets, but the things that you want to discard. That could be an interpretation of discard outlets. Anyway, what did Zonite Urchin pick up to Get Excited? It's not a lot. We're really looking for Jinx, and I feel like this deck is really all in on Jinx, and that's why I've never been a massive fan of it. Here we see the Draven. Economica even has Brittle Steel Culling Strike available to kill the Jinx if she ever does come out, but so far hasn't been able to find any of the units that were buffed up by the Omen Hawk. Does mean he is still very much at the mercy of these Precious Pets. It's only turn 3, and we're seeing a lot of aggro out of Luichi. You You know, forget about the refuel. We could just end the game on the spot. Give me a vision. Vision would actually be absolutely devastating here because you could spinning axe the... So, like, you spinning axe the... Alright, check it. You spinning axe the flame chompers. You put the axe on, I don't know, the precious pet, I guess, right? Then you get excited your opponent's face, discarding vision. Line up your attacks while this get excited's on the stack. Put the flame chompers onto the Omen Hawks and then press OK. And that means that the vision will then buff up your entire board. Your opponent won't have a chance to develop the board. And we're actually just going to see the Culling Strike and Brittle Steel onto the Draven. You actually... I don't like that. You could have Culling Striked first and then Brittle Steeled after the axe came out. So not even giving Luichi the option to discard something. I know that this is a discard aggro deck, but it's not like Luichi loves discarding things. Maybe we were just concerned about a vision, but even then, like, I could just spinning axe this vision, and I could spinning axe the flame chompers. I don't know, it seems like a waste of a Brittle Steel, just a hard waste of a Brittle Steel. In a matchup where I feel like you really need that, you're going to take a couple more Precious Pet hits. You haven't been able to draw any of these units that have been buffed by the Omen Hawks. And that means we're probably going to have to see a Naked Assessor come down on the following turn just to try and fight for board. Though we, the caster, the audience, we all know that that's just going to die to a Get Excited. Oh, Ash finally drawn. Going to be a 7/5 too. That's really doesn't mean much though. There's a pretty big suite of blockers on the side of Luichi. And with Ash not being leveled, those Flame Chompers are still representing blockers. Astute Academic, not a phenomenal pickup, but we'll take it. You know, it's not Vision, it's not Jinx, it's not Experimenter, but it'll get the job done. Going to be a 2/2 for the most part. Going to see Spinning Axe now onto the Precious Pet. Going to give us that Flame Chompers, which are going to pull everything to the side. Going to push through 7 damage onto Economica. Thinking about the Jury Rig as well to push a little bit more. Thinking about it, but not too hard. Oh, actually, I'm going to throw that one out. Throw the attacker on the board. Throw that one at the face, and that is going to be Economica falling down to 8 life, if I've done my math correctly. Yep, 8 life to 17. This time, things working out much better for Luichi. Gets the wide board that he was really looking for. A Vision would almost certainly end the game. Economica just not finding any of his early units. No Avarosan Sentries, or Iceveil Archers rather. No Avarosan Sentries in this deck. My apologies. No Avarosan Trappers. Now we find the Glory Seeker. But that could be too little too late as there is a Jinx picked up for Luichi. Finding the perfect card at the perfect time. Has that Jinx available alongside the Get Excited. Can empty the hand this turn. And with Economica falling this low and not having an answer for this Jinx, does mean that the Super Mega Death Rockets will probably end the game rather over the next couple of turns. What Luichi's really debating here is, do I have to play this Jinx over something, or can I wait for Economica to attack this turn and then just play the Jinx freely onto the board? Looks like we're going to get started off with an Assessor. Into that is not... I didn't see that. There's 3 Ancient Yeti in this deck. I thought this was a normal Frostbite mid-range deck, but there's 3 Ancient Yeti in here. Why did nobody tell me this? I'm firing my secretary for not telling me about the Ancient Yetis, but now we do see that come out. We're going to see Get Excited down onto face. And Economica really still has to take the attack this turn. Your opponent is really not representing a lot in terms of softening up your units. You know, the Omen Hawk, anytime your Omen Hawks get trades into this board, I think you're actually fine with that. And if Luichi decides to just take the full suite of damage, you at least set them up to die on the following turn. But as we all know, well, not all of us, Economica doesn't know this, but we're pretty sure Economica is not making it to the next turn. This Jinx should just be lethal relatively soon. Luichi even going to get full value, able to hold this back until after the attacks come out, so the Jinx will not have to overwrite a unit. And we're going to kill the Omen Hawks, take the 11 damage, and kind of run this one out. What will the Jinx have in store for us? Is there going to be enough burn on top of this Super Mega Death Rocket? Gonna save an Omen Hawk. Not the most impactful thing you could possibly save. These can't block the precious pets. So I don't actually know what we're saving this Omen Hawk for. I guess to block the Jinx, but I'm pretty sure the Super... I mean, I guess this just forces the Super Mega Death Rocket pre-combat. You know, the Get Excited on face does really telegraph either another burn spell here or the Jinx, and we do see the Jinx. Noxian Fervor off the top alongside Vision. These are the top decks that Luichi was looking for in the previous game, and with the Reckoning off the top for Economica, it looks like it will just be the win for Luichi here in game number 2, tying up the series 1-1. And yeah, you can go ahead and throw that Omen Hawk underneath the Jinx. We're going to throw out a Vision. That does mean we're going to kill you this turn. And because of the buff to Jinx, we could even play both cards and still play the Super Mega Death Rocket. So 100% lethal going to Luichi this turn. There's the Vision. Do we want to fire off the Noxian Fervor as well? No, we're just going to go ahead and confirm this action. Going to confirm it from Economica's side as well. And that does mean we're going to have to see Misfortune Quinn try and take out this Frostbite midrange if Luichi wants to go home the winner in this series. Move on to the finals to face our other finalist, who I will not spoil as the winner from the other semifinal match. So upon closer inspection of this quote-unquote Frostbite midrange deck, I've noticed it's actually a Yeti deck. To the extent that we have Ancient Yetis and Tall Tales as a 3-of in the main, as well as the Avarosan Trappers. No Yeti Yearlings, at least I didn't notice that, but I mean, can you really blame me? I see a Frostbite deck, I see the 4 Noxious cards that we typically see. I assume it's like a normal Frostbite midrange, and that just kind of is what it is. Instead, it's not. It's Yetis. Let's go, I guess. Now, I did a matchup breakdown not too long ago. If you guys are familiar with my content, I like to take in-depth looks into matchups sometimes. And the most recent one that I did was Frostbite midrange versus Bannerman. And I talk about how Bannerman has really closed the gap on this matchup lately. A part of that, though, was the fact that Reckless Trifarian isn't able to block the much more aggressive versions of the Bannerman that are coming out, and that was something that was playing against the Frostbite in this matchup. But that's not actually the case here, as we have seen the Reckless Trifarian pretty much completely fall to the wayside recently. So Economica is going to be sitting a little bit closer to that 70% rather than the 65%. It's not a lot of a difference, but the Reckless Trifarian not going to play against them in this matchup. The Kate of the Arm not going to clog up their hand and play against them here. And Economica is still definitely favored, but there is a lot more space for Luichi to win the game than there was previously, even starting off with the ideal first couple of turns, the War Chef and the Fleet Feather Tracker, and this could very well force out a... Oh, actually not going to throw out the Culling Strike onto the War Chef pre-combat. Looks like we might be going for a Tall Tales instead, or it could be the Trifarian Glory Seeker. I don't know if you throw out Tall Tales here. I guess you do. And this should put a Yeti on top of your deck. So a 1-mana 5/5 going to come out of Economica on the following turn alongside that Glory Seeker. And that's about as many 5-attack units as you can get out on turn 2. Or turn 3, rather. So we're going to see the Yeti first. Do you throw out the Misfortune into that? I mean, it's not like... I don't think you have to develop here, actually. I think you can just pass the turn. There's no way Economica's not attacking with this Yeti, right? It just pairs so well into your board. And now you are going to lose your Misfortune to this Trifarian Glory Seeker. A bit of an oopsie there on the side of Luichi, not respecting the additional challenger developed. That does mean he's still going to have a Misfortune available to him. And there was a second copy in hand, bailed out a little bit here. It doesn't have a great answer for this Yeti. And the Culling Strike on the side of Economica could come out really big this turn. No defensive spells on the side of Luichi, just a single combat picked up, and I believe that's the only copy. Yeah, that is the only copy of single combat in this deck. So, gonna have to use that one wisely. Don't spend it all in one place, as my mother would say. Although you don't really have that luxury with single combat. So we are gonna see Misfortune over the Bannerman. Economica, what do you have available to you? The answer is not much, if we're being totally honest with ourselves. You know, the Ice Veil Archer could come down here, but that means that we don't have the Culling Strike available to us. Looks like it will be the Ice Veil Archer anyway. I don't like throwing this onto the Fleet Feather Tracker, because I really think this Fleet Feather Tracker is going to challenge the Ice Veil Archer, and then Misfortune gets to kill the Archer anyway. Yeah, this Fleet Feather doesn't need attack to get value this turn. Yeah, gonna go ahead and challenge out the Archer. I don't think this is the most impactful use out of your... I mean, this is certainly not the best use of your Elixir of Iron, right? And maybe this was all a bait. Maybe this was the 5-headed play out of Economica. It says, I know you're still going to challenge me out. I'm going to get to kill your Fleet Feather Tracker for free. My Ice Veil Archer will remain healthy, wealthy, and alive. And I don't need to deal with the Misfortune just yet. She can go ahead and stick around, but these are two very juicy-looking Culling Strike targets for what is likely not going to be a Culling Strike turn for some time. I don't think you have any choice but to develop the Hearthguard here. And that does mean that Quinn could come out from Luichi, get this Misfortune Quinn combo online. Could even throw out the Relentless Pursuit next turn to level the Misfortune, assuming you go Quinn, you know, play Quinn here, go for a scout attack, go for an attack, play the Relentless Pursuit, go for another attack. That would level the Misfortune. Because she's already seen one combat phase, she just has to see 3 more. That is the power of Relentless Pursuit, why we see it in so many of these decks. And it looks like we're considering the Bannerman to take Culling Strike off the table completely. Reckoning is still going to destroy your entire board, Luichi, if Economica has that available to them, but doesn't have it picked up just yet. No Assessors either to try and dig for the card. Does the Bannerman whiff? It doesn't. There's only one Bilgewater card in the deck, and it's Misfortune, and we've already seen 2 copies of those, so unless the 3rd Misfortune was the top card of Luichi's deck, there was no way that Bannerman was ever going to miss. But we do still see 2 5-attack units coming in at Luichi's life total, going to block out with the Bannerman. Doesn't feel great, but it does soften it up enough for Valor to kill it on the following turn. And going into turn 6, we will have enough mana for Quinn as well as the Relentless Pursuit. So yeah, I mean, Luichi's got a big turn ahead of him. And Misfortune's out of the range of the Culling Strike. Quinn is not, though. Looks like... I'm not sure what Luichi's debating here. I guess, like, holding back the Bannerman's really the only consideration. I don't think you ever throw another buff out onto this Hearthguard. Or another block onto the Hearthguard, rather. Just go ahead and take that 5 damage. You got a big turn ahead of you, Luichi. Get, you know, let your team have a break. Put them in the dugout. Ball game's not over quite yet. Got a pinch hitter in the Quinn. Gonna come up to bat next. Economica doesn't seem to have an ace up their sleeve. I don't know anything about baseball. I don't know if that was abundantly clear by the metaphor I just tried to craft for you there. But the harsh winds picked up from Economica is going to stop any kind of hopes that Luichi had for winning the game, at least this turn. Pretty much impossible to win through that. We could even just see the Sejuani come down, develop that extra blocker, you know. But here's the problem. If we Sejuani the Valor, we run into the same problem last time as the Fleet Feather Tracker, where we can just challenge the Ice Veil Archer. We don't have the 2nd Elixir of Iron. We're not going to get that same trick off twice. And I think even if you Harsh Winds, it's still pretty possible for Luichi to get this Relentless Pursuit off and at least level the Misfortune, which can take over the game in her own right. But if the Harsh Winds comes out, I don't think we're going to see that. It seems a lot more likely that we would fire off the Relentless Pursuit on Economica's turn so that we could go for the Scout attack again, play a little bit safer. We're not going to see Harsh Winds, though. We are just going to see Sejuani down onto the Quinn. Running out of time is Economica, but does lock in the action. I'm going to drop her down to 0 attack. Now Valor gets to have a field day. Valor gets to kill the Ice Veil Archer. Valor gets to kill the Yeti. Valor gets to go to town and do a lot more than a little bird ever should, thanks to this Misfortune. And critically, the Ice Veil Archer is what allows the Valor to attack twice. If this Valor were dying to the Ice Veil Archer here, if a Harsh Winds had come out or some, well, not a Harsh Winds, the Ice Veil Archer's dying no matter what, but things have just played out a little differently. If we had had the 2nd Elixir, for example, Luichi wouldn't really have an impactful second attacker, would have to sacrifice one of his units if he wanted to take this Misfortune closer. But as we said, Valor gonna get the pick of the litter here, gets to take out a Yeti and an Icefield Archer. Little bird flying high, upgraded to a general in the Demacian army for all of the good killing it has done. What a messy region. Actually gonna go for the Sejuani. Gonna soften that one up for the single combat. Are we gonna see single combat from the War Chef come down onto the Sejuani this turn? Or are we simply softening her up for the Relentless Pursuit this turn? Misfortune will deal 3 to anything that blocks. And maybe we just go in with the War Chef and the Quinn. Yeti and Sejuani now off the table as blockers. I think this means we're seeing the Relentless Pursuit come out this turn. If you wait until next turn to do the Relentless Pursuit and Economica opens with a Reckoning, that would be disastrous. So it is going to be the Relentless Pursuit. Not wanting to give Economica any more mana is going to smell the blood in the water. We're going to see the War Chef buff up this Misfortune. We don't have mana for the Ranger's Resolve to protect the Misfortune from the Hearthguard. And I don't love this play in particular. Oh, she is just going to die to the Hearthguard. She's going to get a little bit of value, and we do still have the Quinn alive, as well as the War Chef, but Economica just doesn't have to block with the Yeti. Oh, it's a 6/6 Misfortune because she levels up. I'm the goofball in this scenario. I forgot that leveling champion gives them +1/+1. How could I possibly forget that? We're not really seeing champions level and have that be relevant a lot lately. It's really only Ezreal's that I've seen level as of late. I do apologize. Completely forgot about the +1/+1 from the level up. And that does mean that Economica is going to fall down to 3 here. Does get to hang on to the board though. At least for the time being. Going over into Economica's attack turn. Will have only 8 mana available to them, so Harsh Winds into the Culling Strike is not on the table, and I think that means that Luichi's going to move on to the finals, as Economica doesn't have anything to kill the Oh no, Misfortune loses the War Chef buff. Never mind. Wait, that doesn't matter. Never mind. Never mind by never mind. It doesn't matter. So what I was thinking was, you know, Economica waits until next turn, tries to go for the Harsh Winds into the Culling Strike onto this Misfortune, but it doesn't matter. The attacks are locked in. The 3 damage will kill Economica. I don't think Economica is presenting lethal this turn. Doesn't have mana for the Hearthguard and the Fury of the North. Would just have to be an open attack. Pray that Luichi fumbles on the block by letting the Yeti go and only blocks the Sejuani. That's about your best bet, but without actually top-decking a way to kill the Misfortune, Luichi is just going to be able to pick up this win next turn. There's nothing that Economica can do about this. Not able to find the win against this deck. The Misfortune-Quinn combo is just a little bit too powerful, and I think I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've seen a Misfortune level up and not win the game, either that turn or the following turn. Nothing different going to be coming out here. There's nothing that Economica can draw to stop this Misfortune from just running them over on the following turn with her ability. That's going to be all she wrote for Economica. So, Luichi will be moving on to the finals to play the other finalist, who I do not want to tell you who it is. Don't want to quite spoil that for you, because it's going to be a good one. I'm excited to see how this all plays out. Speaking of which, we're going to have to sit here for a few more minutes, seconds, hopefully more like minutes, while we do sit in limbo as Economica kind of comes to terms with the fact that this game has slipped away from them. They will not be moving on to the finals. They will not be able to become the winner of this tournament. And this will be all she wrote for Economica here. Nothing left to be done but play it all out. Let the cards fall where they lie. Economica perhaps thinking of a top deck that doesn't exist in order to kill this Misfortune before she goes for the attack, giving Luichi the opportunity to misplay by not open attacking, but this is probably going to be the fastest A spacebar I've ever seen in my life. Never mind, we're actually going to line up an appropriate challenge. Doesn't matter though, as soon as Luichi locks this in, the game ends. Just have to wait for it to happen. There we go. There is the love tap on the stack. There is the 3 damage. Economica, I'm sorry, but you are going home a semi-finalist. Congratulations. Luichi punching their ticket to the finals. Look at that face. I love Bailey, my favorite Guardian. Well played, Luichi. Taking Jinx Draven all the way.